Good morning. Welcome to Political No Brainer, the podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversation. I'm Jeff Rabinowitz, and this season we're bringing in voices from all sides to challenge assumptions, bridge divides, and build a better understanding of today's biggest issues. And I am always happy to welcome my good friend and a great candidate for office, Banks Helfrich, who's running for Florida House. Good morning, Banks.
Good morning, Jeff. Build a better understanding. I like that. Is that something that you put together?
I had help. I have great help. I have Laura Williams always helping me with everything. And this was fantastic. She emailed it to me. I opened the email. I was like, "Oh my God." I printed it, and it's what we're doing for the intro from here on out.
Oh, nice, nice.
She's
Well,
awesome.
kudos to Laura. And
I wish
is
I could
she
take
like
credit.
is she like the puppet master? She's the one behind the scenes?
Oh, she is very much behind the scenes. Yes, I've invited her on the show. I'm sure she will join us eventually. She's got some great insights. But she hasn't yet, but she will, I'm sure. And she is not. Yeah, yeah. You could call her the puppet master. You could call her the administrator, the editor in chief. The who knows? She's been great. She is definitely building this with me.
Nice, 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 nice. So what are we talking about today?
Today, Banks, we're talking about. I my favorite topic is education. 100% my favorite topic. It is not politics, as some would believe. It is education. Education is my favorite topic, but we always cover lots of stuff. How about you? So we just chatted before I hit record. You've been to a chamber meeting this morning. You're always busy doing stuff. You invited me. I'll be there Monday. I will be at a million cups of coffee. I think I'm going to be at the one in Orlando Wednesday, so I'm getting out there with you now.
You are?
Um, um, yeah, let's just get into it, Banks. How was the chamber meeting? I know you. I think you've been to a school board meeting or something as well recently, right?
Yeah, yeah. Back up a minute. Why education? Why is that your biggest topic? What is
Well,
it?
so let's. I guess we could just start from the beginning. When I was a kid, I was very dyslexic, and the teachers told my dad I would never read. So my dad, said, "Well, I don't agree." So he taught me how to read. And so one and so one of the things we used to do on Saturdays is walk to the library, and so I guess like I said, my second favorite topic is politics. We'd walk to the library, and the one thing I would read way back then before Google, in the corner of the library was newspapers hanging on sort of like poles, and that was always what I would read. I loved it. I loved current events. I would just sit there in that corner, one newspaper and another after another. I would read them. But so I always felt like the education system, I guess, had an opportunity to let me down, but I had a dad that did not let me down. So I always thought we could do better. I just thought, just say a kid can't do this or a kid can't do that. It's just not right. A kid can do whatever they want,
Mhm.
whatever they believe, whatever they strive for, they can do it. And so I want to get to that point where every kid does believe that as well, and where every kid has an opportunity to seize those moments for very very early on in life. So that's how it became my favorite topic.
Wow. Personal story.
Yeah, that's how. I'm
You
glad you asked the question, actually.
you talk about opportunity, having every kid have the opportunity, and the great thing about America is that we have the opportunity. The American dream is the opportunity to be the best we can, and education, of course, is the foundation for us to succeed. I met a farmer about a month ago, and he said I dropped out of school when I was in eighth grade. And he was very successful. He had a quality of life. He had purpose. So education in the regards to uh, common everyday education, going to school is not for everybody. However, there are options out there. So I want to get back to education in just a minute, and I want to go over to I just got back from a coffee with the chamber, which is South Lake Chamber. And it's a chance for people to come first of the week and to connect or to network and then to move on. You also mentioned 1 million cups. 1 million Cups is looking to come to South Lake County. Now, what do you know about 1 million Cups?
Just what I've read on the internet and just what I've discussed with you, that I read there are other branches. I read about a meeting on every Wednesday morning, and I haven't ever been to a meeting. I find the whole idea interesting. I don't know enough about it at all, really. I would love to touch on that too. I know you've been there, and you've mentioned it with that you've enjoyed it. I think is really, to put a long
Oh
story
yeah.
short. Yeah.
Uh, well, there's one closer than in Orlando. There's one in Eustis.
I read that too. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, and Eustis has about 60 people show up on average. It's at the mega workspace. It is. I've been there twice. I've been there more than twice. I've been there like 3 or 4 times. I've spoken twice. And when you speak, this is the super cool thing about it. It's every Wednesday around the world, and it's usually between 7:30, 8 to 10 o'clock. It depends on, Orlando might have 7:30. Eustis may have 8:30. It is roughly an hour, hour and a half. And you usually have at least one speaker who gets up there and talks about themselves for 2 minutes, about their business for 2 minutes, and then about a problem they have in their business for 2 minutes. That's 6 minutes, which means that leaves 24 minutes for the audience to give suggestions and solutions to that entrepreneur who is up there speaking. And this is great interaction. It's collaborative. And they don't call it networking, they call it connecting. So 1 Million Cups is all about connecting these people together, having them work together or collaborating in different scenarios, or just helping businesses out, entrepreneur to entrepreneur.
And that sounds great. Yeah, I definitely want to go. I want to sit in. I hope I get to be a speaker sometime and talk about um I want to get into everything political note the podcast is doing, which is connecting people again in a positive way and just saying, hey, let's just get past all the assumptions. Let's just get past all the gridlock. Let's just get past all the anger. Let's just talk. Let's just
Right.
have solutions. I understand the frustration. I don't understand the anger. I don't understand the hard feelings we have. And
Well, let's look at anger real quickly. Um, when you get angry, I've been angry with my kids. They didn't do something I wanted them to do. When they were little, I got angry, I get upset. So I think it comes down to somebody is not doing something you want them to do. I mean, that's kind of how,
in a nutshell, in a nutshell.
very simplest. And those who are, when I was when my kids were younger, up to 18, I was the boss. I had to take care of them. I had to make sure I got them through the 18 years, prepared to be um, in our society, a member of our society, hopefully adding to our society positively. So I had to father. Now I am a father. However, I only give them advice when they ask me to. So they're both. One of them is in my district, so a constituent of mine. So I would love to influence them in the issues that are up. But when we get upset with somebody or angry with somebody, they've said something that we don't agree with. Um, However, the bottom line, I think, comes down to they are doing the best they can, and the information for which they have, as well as me, has brought me to this conclusion. Why have I gotten to this bottom line or this idea? It's because of the influences of people around me and the diet for which I take in mentally. So we're talking about, where do you get your information? Do you go to NPR? Do you go to NBC, ABC, CBS? Do you go to all these other outlets that are out there? So, the diet has a lot to do with it. So anyway, anger is out there. How do we take the anger and switch it towards something positive?
Well, I agree. So anger and what are people not doing? So let's build on the topic of politics. So there was a study I read that the average politician fulfills about 5% of their promises. So I don't know how accurate that is. I'm not making a statement. It is something I read. I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just saying it could be very accurate. I feel like it could be accurate. That's my feeling. So
And,
there was this frustration
yeah,
with politicians, and then came this new idea of a different kind of politics, this straightforward man that's just going to say whatever's on his mind. And a lot of us disagreed with a lot of what he had to say. A lot of us felt it was ignorant. A lot of us felt it wasn't. But then there was a lot of us who felt this is what we've been waiting for so long. So, great. If this is what you've been waiting for, how do we move forward in a positive way? If we're gonna, so let me just say this without again, I'm not trying to delve into if we're gonna get away from programs that help people, how do we help people help themselves? And that is through education. So, and there's other ways, and that is also through holding politicians accountable. So they
Right.
say they're going to do things, but then what happens is they don't do them and you feel frustrated. Are you calling them? Are you calling them out on it? Are you following them? Are you just waiting for the net result? Are you just hearing this vote happened in the Florida House and took away something you really enjoyed having? What are you doing to be a part of the process? And I know we're both trying to be a part of the process. I'm asking a question to everybody listening.
All right. So let's unpack that real quickly. 5% of promises, and this is a number you got from
Just
your
reading.
diet, your whatever source you got. So
Right.
that your mental diet. So let's look at that real quickly. I've been in office for 4 years. I've run for 4 years. This will be my third time running. Um, and I do promise that I will work on these issues. And if you go on my website, you'll see 5 of them that I want to attack. One of them, like we spoke last time, was health, not health. It was property insurance. Okay,
Which is
these are solutions.
extremely important.
Yeah. Can I get this done? And um, I'm a Democrat. I'm in a red state. The Republicans I have a supermajority or close to a supermajority in the House. I don't think the Senate. They have the governorship. So that is stacked against me as a Democrat because I'm not in the prevailing party. Now, here's the thing, though. If we want to come up with the best solution, Republican, Democrat, Independent, uh, 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 Libertarian, Green Party, whoever is out there, we are, I feel, as Americans, are trying to find the best solution. And the best solution is not red or blue or left or right. The best solution is the best solution, period. Okay.
Right.
So when we get education and making sure education is basically the foundation of having a critically thinking society, having a smart society, and education is what starts it. We get our kids in school, at 3 or 4 years old. I'm a proponent of education at all levels. Now, here in Florida, we have choice, and back in the '90s, I think Jeb Bush pushed the charter idea. Okay, we're going to have charter schools so that it'll be competition for our district schools. So therefore, the parent, the citizen, will decide where to take their child. Okay, I agree in the competition. That whole giving people a choice. Now, what happened is these charter schools have taken off, and they have made money. This is their job. This is a capitalistic society, and they've taken dollars away from the district. So now the districts have to work with less and less and less. Let's talk about the level playing field. Okay. So when charter schools came in, there was a push for the charter schools to not have to jump through as many hoops. And what I mean by that is if you are a charter school in Florida, you don't have to have transportation for your pupils. No transportation. So the transportation lies on the districts. Now, that price that every parent gets from the state, if they want to go to a private school, a charter school, a public school, that number is like $8,100. Okay,
Right.
every student is allotted that much money. Now, in a district school, that $8,100 has to pay for transportation, has to pay for special needs students. It has to pay for education, administration, the upkeep of that school. that 8,100 over here at charter schools, they don't have to pay for uh, transportation. So do you see that the playing field is not fair?
No, it's not. And I'm gonna tell you, I know some kids go to charter school. The school doesn't have transportation. They don't have to. They don't. The parents do have to make their way over there. I believe it's an incredible school, and I know the comparisons because I've known a private school and I know the results from the charter school. So, um, but and like you said, this is a problem. So let's talk about the solution. Well, let me tell you let's talk, the Affordable Health Care Act had the same challenges, and they talked about funding the high expense corridors. In healthcare, they call it the high risk corridors. Imagine if the public school system got more funding for those particular line items that they have to have versus the line items that the charter school doesn't have to have. Would that be the solution? Would that make sense? And it would, I believe. And that was the same challenge they had with the Affordable Care Act. They said insurance has to take you no matter what. You can literally live without insurance and then come up with a terrible situation and be able to get insurance based on your age and your gender, not a pre-existing condition cost. And so then they just put the onus on the insurance company. In the end, it seemed to work out for the insurance company. They got more subscribers to the point where there was enough healthy people covering the high risk corridor. That's
Right.
not going to happen in education. So let's fund the high expense line item. Is that a solution? Is my question.
Okay, let's talk about it. Let's say it's $8,100. Okay, and I'm just making that as so that
The operative figure.
we can work with that number. So in the district, since you're paying for education, you're paying for special needs, that number has to go up either per pupil or just overall. Okay, so instead of $8,100, they get $10,000 per child. Okay,
Right.
that pays for everything. All the extras. Basically, transportation. Transportation is expensive. It's one of the biggest expenses that they have. So 8,100 for charter schools, private schools, the voucher, all of that, even homeschoolers. Those who are homeschooled, I think that they have the minimum, which is the 8,100. So if you want to have your kids at home and you want to teach them yourself, you get $8,100. Now that's 42. If you have 4 kids, that's $42,000 a year, which that's a job while you're taking care of your kids. All right.
And you're getting reimbursed in a sense.
Right. Now that's one thing. Now the other thing is formula, and this is something I met the new principal of Cherry Lake Preparatory Academy, which is right here 2 miles away. Their whole thing, are you familiar with STEAM? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So their school is called a WISH school: wellness, innovation, science, and health. So health and wellness are basically the bookends for their school. What do I do on my farm? I teach people to grow their own foods, and that way they'll have more food. They'll be healthier in the long run. So basically, I'm teaching how to be healthy. They found out about me. They came out. I met the principal. She said something very interesting to me. I said, "Okay, so what's your background?" She said, "I worked in Idaho and I worked in Minnesota." I said, "Tell me the differences between their educational programs," because education comes down to each state. Each state gets to decide. By the way, Florida is like 46, 47. Yeah. All right. In education. So she said in Idaho, they have libertarian values, which means government keep out of my business. This is my business. I get to do whatever I want to do. Fine. I mean, that's the thinking that's out there. And the people collectively have come up with that type of a state. So their thing was, we're so glad Mississippi's in the United States. And I asked why. She said, because Mississippi is 50th in the United States and Idaho is 49th. Idaho is not the last. So, and I asked her, I said, did they put money into education? She said, no. They're into freedom. Understand, totally understand. She worked in Minnesota. I said, okay, Minnesota, how was that? She said they put resources and money into education. And it shows because they are usually in the top 5, the top 10 every single year. So my point is, you want to have an educational system which is vibrant. You have to put the resources into it. Now, with that said, I just had a sit down with Bill Mathias. He's on the school board here in Lake County.
Yeah,
Um,
and
I went to
I'm
him and I asked him, I said, how may I help? He said, come to my office. I want to show you the formula. Now, this is the state formula for education. It's FPFS. I do not know what the acronym stands for, but it's the Florida Educational Funding formula, I guess. And what has happened is that there's so many criteria in figuring out the money per student that each student gets from the state, and most of the money does come from the state. I mean, they do have bonds, or they do have 1 cent tax for education, millage, that kind of stuff. That does happen. Now, so the state has this formula. Lake County Lake County is now like 47, 46, and they're losing this year $14 million, okay, from the budget. It's taken
right.
out of this formula. Orange County is losing, I think, $83 million from because of this formula. Now, this formula has to either change, and it's antiquated. I think it was put together back, I'm saying in the 90s. I may be wrong on that regard. So this formula needs to change. It needs to be up to date. My thing is, why don't we just have the state give $10,000 per kid to every single kid, okay, in the state, and that way it's equal for everybody. This formula makes it that it's not equal. We're losing $14 million here in Lake County. So what is the solution? The solution, and Bill Mathias actually mentioned this to me, and I agree with him. The issue is $200 million. The bottom 10 school districts, which are counties, basically need $200 million to be average. Okay, just to be back in the average category, like all the other counties. So in the state, we find $200 million. We do have a reserve fund that we can pull from, which I think last time I heard is $9 or $11 billion. We put $200 million back into education, and that way this gives these schools, districts, a chance to make it. So that's kind of in a long way. That's my idea.
I love that idea. And let's be honest. It seems like no matter where you look, no matter what state you look, the trend is that the education systems, the public education system is losing $83 million on an average every year. Why are we not increasing their budgets every year? And that's really frustrating to me. So let me take, for example, no matter where you go in Orlando, you see theme parks. And when you go to this fantastic theme park, and you go to a ride and you realize it's no longer there. It's different. It's refurbished. It's exciting. It's new. It's kept relevant. When you go to our education system, you see the same portables and the same buildings from 40 years ago. We've cannibalized the funding every year. This is nothing earth-shattering news to me that they're pulling the. I just talked to the director of Orlando Workforce Academy. He's losing money. He's doing an incredible thing, and he's losing money this year. Money he doesn't even know how to replace. He doesn't. He's going to his faculty and doesn't even know. He's putting it out there to them. How do we fix this? And
Okay, go ahead.
why is the trend always, you know, the that the money they're losing money? Why is that the trend? And then the other thing was the education, the lottery. We talked about it. There used to be billboards, and they caused so much irate reaction. $10 billion to the education system. That was the Florida lottery's billboard. He said, "Yeah, you gave us $10 billion, but you took the $10 billion from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, so stop publishing. You've given us $10 billion. You pulled the money back somewhere else." So they pulled down the billboards, of course, because it was propaganda that didn't really work in their favor. But why is it that?
Why is it? Oh, simple answer. Why is it that we don't put money into our education? Because, you ready? We don't value it enough.
We don't.
We don't, as a community, we do not value it enough. So if we did, if we were like Minnesota and we put millions, probably billions of dollars into education, we would see that it works. Now, let's talk about cannibalizing real quickly. And we have, I mean, since Jeb Bush and opening up charter schools and then recently opening up vouchers. Okay. So let me explain vouchers real quickly. Vouchers are state will give you, I think it's, I'm gonna just say 8,100. I think it's a little bit less than that. They'll give you a voucher or it's 7,600. Let's just say 8,000. Um, uh, the state will give you that much money for you to put into any private school you want to. So it used to be in the past, there was a threshold of how much money you make. If you made above that, you don't get this voucher. Well, that went away. So this voucher is available for anybody. So if my kid was at Montverde Academy and I was paying $40,000 a year, guess what? The state now will give me $8,000 for that. So I'm only paying 32,000 a year. Do you see my point? So
Yes.
these families that have the money, and I'm not dissing the families. I'm just saying that the opportunity for them, that money is going to them rather than it's going to another student. However, with that said, and I don't want to talk in circles, but however, that money is still available for people throughout the state. It has not been available. I think it's only 3,500 that homeschoolers get. However, let's give that price at 8,000 to the parents that do it. So you're paying them to teach their kids and you're paying them to stay home. Now, so we have this pie of education, and right now, modern thinking is let's cut everything. We have too much fat from the highest levels, from federal government all the way down to Tallahassee, all the way down to local municipalities, Claremont and Groveland. So the whole concept of cutting stuff because we don't need it because it's redundant. I'm sure there is redundancies out there. I'm not gonna argue that. I am going to argue that if we do take money away from this, let's say we get rid of the Department of Education. All right, let's just go there. Get rid of the Department of Education, so the federal money that goes towards Department of Education is taken out. That means the states and the states alone have to or decide to pay for after school meals, after school programs, all these federal programs, meals at school, those are funded usually by federal. All of these programs will then be put on the backs of the state, and the states then have to drum up, hey, guess what? We got $2 billion last year from the federal government. This year we have to find the $2 billion. All right. So I get it. I get it. Our taxes might be lower in general. However, we're going to, that money is going to go away from education. So what is the solution? Let's say the solution is getting rid of the Department of Education. Fine. All those jobs are going to go away. The money that we have is going to be minimal. We have to find that money somewhere. If we don't find the money somewhere, we're um, we're out of luck. We
Well,
have
the idea
people.
the idea that's being bubbled out there is that the reason they're cutting all these programs is to pay for a tax cut for the very wealthy. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I think it is what's going to happen. I do know there's parliamentary rules in the U.S. Senate where if a tax cut results in too big an increase in the deficit, it won't be able to pass. Um, but I think the first thing we should say is education should come first. I understand the notion of cutting out the federal Department of Education. You've then split the problem into 50 ways. And you've given the states the individuality to address their education system. Some states are more farming. Some states are more agricultural. Some states are more manufacturing. So you create a momentum 50 different ways of how you're going to educate your kids. Like you said, in Florida, Rick Scott's, when you talk about Jeb Bush, I always think of Rick Scott. His idea was to close, he did his very best to close all the campuses and get everybody online. I mean, there was literally advertisements during his reign about online high school. Go online, go online. And I never believed in that. The kids need a campus environment. They need to be around their friends. They need to be responsible to show up in classrooms. They need to have sports activities and other activities. So I never believed in closing the campuses. If that was a bad approach, I think that we've gotten away from it. We are building new campuses, but we need to fund education. And there's been so many issues with the notion of funding education. One was one party said defund the police and spend it on education. No, we need to fund the police as well. Police are doing an important job. We need to give them the funding and the support they need to do the job they're doing. We need to create an education system that isn't the administrators can't be spending 90% of their time figuring out how to close a budget. They need to have the funding to do the job they're trying to do because that's our future. As much as the environment's important, as much as so many things are important, as much as bringing jobs back to America is important, our education system is important. And I've always said that I've always felt like there was this underlying, like I sometimes I call it a deep state, where both parties see to it that we have an enormous underclass. And I want to see to it that we have an enormous educated class, that we have there's so many more things we need to do with the education system that we're not doing. And I just would love to see parents go to those school board meetings and go to those million cup meetings and start a momentum that says we need to fund education. Stop cutting it. Stop that now. Level it off, level the cuts off, and start funding it. And like you said, yeah, there could be waste. Yes, there's waste in government. There could be abuse. Yes, there's abuse in government. But to just say we're going to cannibalize our education system to eliminate some of that waste, that's the wrong direction.
Okay, so you said educated class. Oh my God, I love those two words together. Educated class. Yes, I feel as a society, education is important, so we fund this class. We fund everybody basically, but I love how you kind of made it that way. So waste. Let's talk about waste real quickly. Waste you find everywhere. Okay, here on my
Everywhere.
farm, there's waste. Guess what we do with our waste? We compost it. Okay, cut down the sugar cane. What is not used, we put it right back into the soil. There's waste in businesses. I mean, Amazon, all businesses have waste. Now, this is not only particular to the government because government does have waste. There's not more or less. You find it pretty much everywhere. Okay, so keeping that in mind. Now, we have to raise, here's the conundrum. Here's the dog eating its tail. We have to raise citizens who are educated so that they push for education later in life and it continues to perpetuate itself. You and I we love education. I am an educator. I teach people to farm. So how do we instill it upon our communities to fund education? And I think it should be done locally. And I want to talk about local home rule in just a minute, but I'm going to go back. I'm back to this real quickly. Um, so we fund it so we have educated citizens. Now, in Florida, let's go Lake County. Lake County has a lot, I don't know the number, of 55 plus communities. Okay. These communities, these people don't want to have to pay education taxes. Okay. They would like to eliminate impact fees, and that pays for education. I think the majority of it does. They want to have less taxes because they are senior citizens. They don't have kids. They're not putting money into no one that they know are in the schools. So the pushback from 55 plus community is, I want less taxes, less taxes, less taxes, because I've already paid into the system. I don't want to pay more into the system. Which if you're a citizen of the country, our country, you have to participate, and participating taxes are part of that participation. And which gets us to, if we want a good education system, we have to put the resources into it, and we have to prioritize it. So we have to put it up here. Now, let me. I've been kind of all over the place, but let me bring it down to home rule. Are you familiar with home rule?
Not
HR.
as much as I like to be. I'm not.
Okay.
I've read about it. I've heard about it. I definitely know
So
the term.
the federal government is thinking about eliminating um, the education department. All right, that is not home rule. That's federal rule. Okay, so that's going to trickle down to the states. The states then will decide what they want to do with the money, and what counties get it, what counties don't. Oh, every county will get it, but there'll be some sort of formula that they'll use. Then from there, it goes down into the cities. Now, the cities mainly don't deal with education. However, I will give you a success story which is in your own backyard, your own community, and that is Groveland, where you live. Groveland has a large influx of development coming in, and these developers come in and go, okay, we want to develop. Well, what are you going to give the community if you develop? And Groveland, over the past 5-6 years, has said you need to put land aside for schools, parks, green space. They want to have 65% green space. This is Groveland. This is the city you live in. So
It's beautiful.
they went to the school board and said, hey, we're going to need high schools. We're going to need elementary schools. And the school board said, we can only fund it after the fact. So you have to show that you have this many kids in school, then we'll fund it. Well, Groveland wanted to get ahead of the curve. Groveland went out and said, hey, charter schools, would you like to come? We have 5 acres land right here, which the developer gave. Okay, and I don't know the arrangement as far as renting or whatnot. Would you like to come and be a neighborhood school? So you have a school here and you have neighborhoods around it, which everybody walks, rides their bikes. In fact, the new principal of the Cherry Lake Preparatory Academy wants to have bike buses, which means the principal will ride her bike to a stop, pick up everybody on their bikes, and bring them to school. This way, you eliminate all the traffic that's going to schools. You keep it a neighborhood school. Traffic is down. Emissions are down because you're not in a car. The kids are getting exercise in the morning immediately. And they've noticed that if you do something active in the morning, your metabolic rate is higher throughout the entire day. So that keeps health benefits. It keeps kids awake in school. So there's so many benefits to these small schools in these communities. So if you do that, then you have a small school. You don't have a school that is 20 acres and 40 million. I think it's $100 million is a high school now. You have a school that has 600 members or 600 pupils, because that is the number to break even for these nonprofits, for these charter
Charter
schools.
schools.
That is home rule in the sense that Groveland and their council came together and said, we propose this. We're going to have the land available for this school, and it's done on a local level. Now, they still get their they still get their $8,000 or whatever. Let's say $8,000 for every student that goes there. Okay, so that's how they're getting paid. And they are giving a service to the community, educational service. Now, we want charter schools to teach our kids. Okay, we want district schools to teach our kids. By having it home rule, I feel you are transparent and you are beholden to the community, your neighbors and your friends that are right there. You're not beholden to some representative up in Tallahassee or up in DC.
Well, I absolutely love the idea of this, and I can't believe Groveland's the center of the masterpiece of this, if you will. And there is so much of that. We talk about the self-governing um in Florida, and there's people thought it was just a couple of theme parks. But the self-governing rights, I guess you would call them in Florida, is basically a tax abatement. It's a new type of tax abatement where developers get money to bonds, low interest bonds, to build their developments. There's 1,900 self-governing districts in Florida. They became a very publicized issue when the governor butted heads with one particular self-governing body. But there is 1,900 self-governing bodies in Florida. I had to jump through hoops to get to the governor's office and get that email that tells me who those self-governing bodies are. There's 1,900, and it's very hard to understand. There's law firms that just do self-governing bonds that represent these developers. So again, just like you said, not to get into self-governing, not to get into the very specifics of the math, there's money. It doesn't mean to fund education means that you've got to pay more property tax. It could mean that. There's no doubt about it. It could mean that. But these self-governing bonds that are being issued in Florida, one is the Daytona 500. They're doing very well. If they had to contribute to the education system to keep their self-governing rights, they would be okay. They wouldn't necessarily have to shutter their doors. They would be okay. The other thing too is, and I'm just making vague points, and I agree they're vague points, but they because if you just get into so much detail, I don't know how many people would listen. But when elderly people say, "I'm 55 and I no longer want to pay into the education system," there's a cloverleaf effect about having a strong education system, and one of them is safety. If your kids are literally spending more time in school, if they're doing more physical activity, if one of the things that turns kids to crime is food insecurity. If your school system is literally providing your kids not only food, but and sometimes the food is as a brown bag with mozzarella sticks and a chocolate milk. If they're providing a plated meal, a real healthy meal, if they're providing them certain options like a vegan option or a pescatarian option, if they're providing them real glassware, real silverware, if they're literally staying in that school system after school and eating a great meal that they won't get at home if their parents are dysfunctional, you have a benefit from that as a 55-year-old, as a 20-year-old, as yeah, you've paid into that system. Your kids have graduated. Your kids may be very successful because generally speaking, those 55-year-olds who are pretty inept at talking about how the tax system works, are pretty good providers to their children of imparting important information that'll carry them very successfully through life. So those people who are complaining about I've already paid for my kids to go to school, there's a benefit to continue paying those education taxes. So, um, to say that those elderly communities no longer want to pay those taxes, I would never support saying people living in the villages no longer have to pay an education tax. They haven't done enough for their society. And there's more we can all do. Yeah, it's a sacrifice, but it's a sacrifice that'll have an enormous return on its investment. And I would love to that should be the understanding. And if it's not, we should be the ones conveying that should be the understanding. Granted, people are going to disagree with us. They're probably going to disagree with us a lot. But you know what? To think right now that the momentum is so strong in the other direction that these 55-year-olds are really the ones that make their points, they're really the ones that have the lawmakers' ears is concerning to me. Because if that does happen, if there is some sort of concession to them that they no longer have to pay education tax, the part of their tax that goes to education, and they get this deduction, if that's who has the politician's ear, it could happen. So I would like to see that not happen.
Well, let's talk about representative government, and that is I'm running for state house district, South Lake County, basically South Leesburg, Lake County, all the way down to Four Corners. Um, what do I do as a representative? I represent the people. All right, and majority of those people are 55 plus. Okay, and if they don't want to pay taxes, which most people do not want to pay taxes, I get it. Actually, I don't really get it because taxes are what pay for our roads, pay for our fire, pay for our police chiefs, pay for our security, our serve and protect, fresh air, fresh water, these kind of things. We live in a society. We have to work together, and that needs to have money in order for us to have clean water. So representative government is you listen to your constituents, okay? And as someone who believes in education, and I believe in everybody putting their fair share into it, my job is to offer the option of, for 55-year-old people, hey, listen, money was put into education back when you were a child by 55-year olds. It's now time for you to put money back into the system to
Right.
the next generation come along. Um, you talked about 1900 community resource. Now, what are they? CRT, community development. I think it's community development regions. Uh,
Right. That's
yeah,
the spawn. That's the self-governing regions. Yeah.
right. And there are 1900 of them, and the most popular one or the most famous one is Disney. Disney was a self-governing community, um, and um, it was we heard a lot about it like about 3 years ago. Um, I didn't know that Daytona 500 is part of that.
The villages is a part of it.
Villages, yeah. I think downtown Winter Garden is too. And these are taxing bodies that can put more money into the system through infrastructure, through police, through fire, through sidewalks, all that kind of stuff. And I understand this. I mean, not right now in my district, South Lake County, Four Corners needs a community district. They need to have to keep their taxes locally so that they can then govern themselves, or not so much govern, but pay for the
Pay for
infrastructure.
themselves.
So
Right.
pay for fire and police, and we have it through the county, and the county basically gets it now. Um, that's what I have to say about that. The other thing is you talk about diet, kids that go to school. I think Lake County, every kid is available for free lunch, my understanding. And I don't know if that's just elementary or throughout, just because we are in that group, we are in the socioeconomic area of that. So our diet is kids get fed at school. Now, when they're on break, sometimes they don't get fed because they don't have the food. So there is a an issue with making sure that they get fed actual food. Okay, this is to nourish their bodies. The other diet is educating their brains. Okay, we have to make sure that that is there. So the diet is twofold. Um, Anyway, when it comes down to it, education creates a better quality of life.
For
So
everyone.
so how do we go in and we encourage people to support education? Florida, we have been a bullseye target for education. I mean, the unions, the districts have gotten smaller, the unions have gotten smaller. These people are the ones that support our districts. It used to be, and I just heard this week, it used to be that when you went to elementary school, you could go to a private school, you could go to your public school. However, the best place to go was the public school. That's where you got your best education. Now that is flipped around, and you don't get your best education in public schools. At least in Florida, you have to go. Oh, you don't have to. You go to other options.
Yeah, and one of the options that's been incredible is charter schools. It's been incredible, but you know, all the options should be good. I'm just going to say that we should have our kids wherever they go to school, and there are kids who are not net. So there's a lot we could do with education. So there's kids who are not mathematicians. There's kids who just find biology straight boring. And so then comes, I heard the argument the other day and I didn't take part in it. Well, now at least we got rid of the fidgeting corners. I guess in some classrooms they had kids that fidget, and there was a particular area in the classroom for kids that fidget. I'm not necessarily saying we need to accommodate the kid, have a fidgeting corner. But if we have a kid that's floundering in biology, that's floundering in certain things, grammar, which grammar is very important, but if they're not getting it and they're just showing no interest, that's where my guest, Daryl Blackhall, he runs Orlando Workforce Academy, where they can literally get across the aisle at a later age in life after they've floundered out of our K through 12 system, and they can also get an education in a trade and understand there's so much we could do with that. We need tradesmen. We need plumbers. We need carpenters. Uh we need them all. you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
um and then the other thing I always like to bring up when I talk about that, and this is just growing the education system. This is really, really creating a petri dish that grows the education system a lot further than it's been doing. Is um we should talk to kids about how to start a small business. You may want to be a plumber, but you may not want to work for a big plumbing company. And if you understand what it takes, if you understand from the beginnings, it takes a vehicle, it takes tools, it takes parts, it takes the fact that you may not get paid right away, so that's receivables. You understand going into it, the whole thing, you would be better off, more successful going into it than you would if you go into it and you realize, oh my God, I didn't have money for any of this. And now all I've got is a van. I have no money for any of this. I'm not even able to do my first job. So we need to expand our education system to open minds. There's a book out there. Um, it's called it's very popular actually. It's Robert Kiyosaki. He writes Rich Dad Poor Dad. He talks about how he had a rich dad who was very successful in business, and his dad was actually a poor dad who was a successful professional. And he talks about how he learned from both of them. And he learned that to succeed in life, you need to know about taxes. You need to know about banking. You need to know about insurance. You need to know about financial planning, investing, and how that's how he became this person that owns 18,000 rental properties. I don't know that every kid is going to own multiple rental properties. I don't know that every kid is going to invest millions in the stock market. I do know now kids are having challenges just owning a home. There's a home housing crisis in America that is enormous. Me and you just looking at both of us right now on this video, we both live in a beautiful home. So at the end of the day, the other day, I was leaving work and it's a long walk to the car and I was freezing. I didn't realize I was going to get so cold. I didn't even have a sweatshirt or anything. But all I really knew was in 10, 15 minutes of this terrible cold, I'll be in a car. I'll turn the heat on. 20 minutes from entering that car, I'll be in a home. I'll take a hot shower. I would go into a great bed with beautiful blankets. There are people that don't even have that. Not only are they people, there's children. And I'm not saying let's create another social program that gives them money to have something. Let's create a momentum. Let's create a moment that teaches people how to fish that doesn't fish for people. And let's start it throughout our education system, the K through 12 education system. Life has gotten more and more complex. That is not me saying it. Warren Buffett talks about it, how 300 years ago, everybody was a farmer. Everybody had the skills to do fairly well. But now, in order to do fairly well, you might have to be an IT guy, or you might have to at least understand IT. You might have to understand financial planning. Well, we haven't implemented any of that in our education system as far as buying a home, balancing a checkbook, making that a routine part, and then people argue again. We can't change our curriculum. First of all, the teachers union is the strongest union in the world, the biggest union in the world. We can't just change our. We've got to have reading. We've got to have math. We've got to have social studies, which we do. But what about after school? What about in online courses, life skill courses? What about making them even incentive based, where if kids actually fulfill the courses, maybe they get a $50 gift card from Amazon? And I actually said I threw that out to Daryl Blackhall, who is the proprietor and who is the director of the Orlando Workforce Academy. It came to him. He said, "We do have incentives. We do have like a caught you doing something right program, where if the kids are doing something really well, we give them a gift or a gift card. We do have, and they work great. The kids are looking forward to having that acknowledgement, financially and the personal sense of accomplishment from getting that acknowledgement. And that's all things that would cost money. No doubt about it. Nothing's free in life. $50 gift cards cost $50. Creating an online life's course costs money to have somebody narrate it, to have somebody create it online. But it is such a great investment that would have such a huge return. It would reduce crime. The reduction in crime, like I said, a lot of kids that start this life with so little, often with no even understanding of how to get more, often turn often come to the realization, and I hate to be morbid about it, they come to the realization that the one thing they have to trade over and above their older competition is their bodies. And we could maybe reverse that cycle, that human trafficking cycle. A lot of kids just get frustrated and turn to drugs. Hopefully, we can reverse some of that cycle. And that would happen if we create an education system that really addresses a lot of that. It's just me thinking out loud for the moment, but
Yeah. Well, you talk about trafficking, you talk about drugs, you talk about homelessness, and those are another topics we can talk
whole
about.
other topics,
Uh,
yeah.
So staying with schools, um, there we have to look at education, lifelong education. Okay, so two or three they can get into. I think before that you can get into oh, what is it? A Claremont Head Start. I do some work with them. From there all the way to, I'm 62. I'm still learning. I love to learn. So through the stages, we have to make sure we have opportunity education for everyone. Okay. So Head Start is for those who I think are below the poverty line or close to it, that they can then send their kids to for I think 4 to 6 hours a day, and they can then go work to support the kids, which I'm a supporter of. Um, the amount of volunteerism, and I work with Lindsay with Claremont Head Start, and she's great. She's there all the time. She organizes. She and I put in a garden, raised bed garden for the kids. Anyway, so you have that there. You have opportunity once they get into like K through 12, and the opportunities are district school, homeschool, virtual school, choices. These are all choices of voucher, and also private schools, or charter schools. So you have this. Now let's look beyond that. After that, you also have post education, which would be Lake Tech, and you can learn how to do ACs and uh, air conditioning and welding and these kind of things, to teach a trade for people. And usually takes a year, but 1,005 hours. Usually it's I don't know what the price is, maybe $5,000. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. But you have that. You have Lake Sumter State College. If college isn't right for you, you have Lake Tech. If that's not right for you, you have apprenticeships. You have career choice, or career source, who they give jobs to kids over the summer, and they make $15 to $18, up to 20 to 30 hours a week. These are high school and college kids that can have an internship job. Okay. So these opportunities are there. It's just finding ways to educate them on it. Now I'm gonna come back again, and you talked about school and you talked about classes. Right now in Lake County, you can be on the football team, and because it is after hours, you can get a PE credit for being on the football team. The cross country team, the tennis team, the swim team, the diving team, the volleyball team, baseball, softball, all these teams. Okay. Pretty cool, right? You cannot if you're on the marching band. Marching band, they go out there and they work out in the hot sun, and they're trudging along their instruments and they're playing. That PE credit is not transferred to them, which, slight little language change, it should be. I mean, this would be
It makes
perfect.
no sense that it's not, right? It
Right,
makes no
right,
sense
right.
that it's not.
And this was a woman who came to me and said, "Hey, listen, Banks, can you help me get this done?" And I was like, "Sure." Where do we start? We start with the language, changing the language to add marching band also. Period. I mean, it's like that simple. Um, anyway, these things that we're doing, the way we look at education has come from a teacher of ours. And if you look back in your life, there's been a teacher that has been there, because in our family, in our lives, we have our family, which is the closest to us, and we see the most. You know who the next person in our lives are, who we see the most of? Teachers.
Teachers.
At a young age, teachers are the most instrumental in lives. You and I mean, I'm going to speak for myself. I had a teacher, Mrs. Belloc, seventh grade class. She was a teacher that found a way to um, make me learn geometry. My background's in math, so I like math. However, I talk about her all the time because she left a lasting impression on me. And we all have that connection to education. We have to make sure we do not lose it for this generation. Because if they lose that connection to education, guess what? Education doesn't mean much for people going forward.
I agree with you so much because I do feel like we are losing that connection. I do feel like I'm not pointing fingers why we're losing that connection. I'm not going to do that. That's not the reason for this show. That's not the reason for this discussion. I just want to be the ones that continue to talk about recreating that connection at numerous new levels, not only the old levels, at numerous new ways of creating that connection. And I can only preface, granted, everyone's gonna say you've never been an educator, you've never been a lawmaker, you've never been, I've been a parent. I'm a parent. I know so much. I tell my wife all the time, the kids never listen, but they're always listening. I see it 2 weeks later after you tell them something, and they look at you like they're crazy. You're crazy. I see them doing it. I know what a positive influence can be. I know how much they learn, how much they talk about their learning. I know how much they love their education. I want to recreate that momentum and make it greater and greater and greater. And there's no political movement. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, red, blue, libertarian, it doesn't matter. There's no greater investment than an investment in our kids. So you can talk about. I don't disagree with shutting down the education department. If you can send this problem, if you can divide this problem into 50 and have great people doing it and take that enormous federal expense and give it back to those 50 states, uh, I agree with the approach. But uh, we if we're going to do it, let's not just close the education department. It has a function. Do it slowly, do it efficiently, do it the right way. Transfer the power in a way that the power is taken and received and used properly. Don't just close the building and leave everybody in a scramble on how to make things happen again, because that will again create a void that we will lose that education connection with our kids. If there's this enormous void, if there's this enormous misunderstanding of what we're supposed to do now, that will create another point where we're losing our connection to our kids through education. And I want
Right.
to reinvigorate that connection and make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And that is my passion. That's why I love talking to people about education and everything you're doing, because the things you do are incredible. I've watched how passionate you are. I've worked with you on the Lake County Water, Soil and Water Conservation District. You were the director. You were the chairman. And all the things you did, you came to every meeting prepared, and you organized every meeting. I know you'll be a great House representative for Florida. I think you have a bigger, brighter future in federal government too. We need more and more concerned citizens taking on these chores of how to make America better and better and better. And
Thank, thank you. Thank you for that endorsement. I appreciate it.
I'm excited. I really think this is the time. This is the one
Yeah.
that's gonna.
Um, Third time's a charm. Are we done? We're done.
I think because we have so much more to talk about, well, we always have time down the road. So, and I don't want to.
Well, we did dabble into trafficking, drugs, homelessness, which could be
Oh, a
another
whole
topic.
nother topic.
I
I
mean,
went down that rabbit hole just because it could. I was just saying, through education we can mitigate the problem. We can mitigate the situation.
right. And I mean, my whole campaign is about solutions. So, I mean, I've got a solution for gas prices. I've got a solution for food prices. I got a solution like we did last time, property insurance costs. One for special needs and first responders, working with them. I've got a fifth one. I'm trying to think of what the fifth. Oh, congestion, traffic congestion and excessive development here in South Lake County. So yeah, we have a lot more to talk about, which is great. I enjoy these. Appreciate
I
it.
love these. I love these banks. And the one thing about traffic congestion, and something new I learned, that the whole meeting at a meeting at a point, and the kids ride their bicycles to school. I was like, wow, I love riding my bicycle. I would have loved that as a kid, but I'm not gonna, like you said, and this is the podcast where we move past the winner takes all politics and into conversation, where bringing voices like yourself and others, where we bring in voices from all sides, challenges assumptions, bridge divides, and I want to keep doing that. I don't want to talk about the rhetoric that's out there. I don't. It's not constructive to keep bashing one party or the other. I'm an American. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm really not a libertarian, but I don't know what I don't want to get into that. But but I
We could talk about libertarianism when we talk about taxes. That'd be great.
yeah,
In
yeah,
fact,
we will. We
I
will.
I have a friend of mine. I'll introduce him to you. Yeah. Nick. I think we call him Nick. Maybe Nick might want to join us sometime.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned somebody else too. I'd love to see if we can create another.
Yeah, Robin Hoover, she and I went and saw Bill Mathias, and we talked to him or listened about the formula. And she's this a friend of mine in Groveland who goes to all the board meetings. She knows some. I call her the Queen of Groveland. She knows so much. She was unavailable today, but at last minute I thought, hey, she might be perfect. But yeah,
Yeah, I would love to
yeah,
have her. I'd like to get Bill on here. I know he owns a restaurant supply company,
yeah.
yeah, I know him. I've met him. I actually been out to his supply company too, so
Oh,
I would
nice.
love to get him on here. That's
Okay.
great, Banks. Thank you so much. Thanks
You're
always
welcome.
for your time because I know how busy you are, and I'm looking forward to having you over on the show. You know, text me. I'll text you. I'll always reach out to you and say, hey, can you do the show?
Sure. It's all
So
right. Enjoy it. Enjoy it.
so like, share, subscribe, comment. We definitely want to hear your comments. You can email me at politicalnobrainer@gmail.com to tell me if you want to be on the show or tell me anything you don't want to do on the public view. And Banks, talk about you're running for Florida House. Tell us about that real quick. And
State House District 25, South Lake County, South Leesburg, all the way down to Four Corners. I am a Democrat, and basically, my tagline is from seed to solution. I'm a farmer,
I
so I
love
look
it.
at things through nature's eyes or through a farmer looking at nature. And my whole thing is solutions. In fact, if you bring people on that have issues, let's talk about the solutions. And I think that's what you and I do, Jeff, is we try to find out the best solution possible. And I think with education, I mean, we talked about some of the solutions. We talked about the issue. The main thing is to change the mindset of people to get them to put more of a higher priority on education, because education is what starts it. And when we're later talking about trafficking, drugs, and homelessness, if we have the education, we won't have these issues
We
as
can mitigate them. We can reduce them. We can reduce them dramatically. I
we can.
mean, yeah. Thanks, Banks.
All
Thank you
right.
so much. It's been a pleasure as always. Please stay in touch. I will stay in touch with you. As you know, I'm not going to let you get away.
All
But
right.
have a great day, Banks.
All
Thanks.
right.